Today, across all social media, we got the trailer for WWE Unreal. WWE Unreal is the docu-series that they've been working on with, I think, a lot of the same producers of NFL films and stuff like that. And the idea is to give kind of the most realistic look into the world of WWE that they've ever done. I mean, this is being touted as being completely unprecedented with the amount of access. And we've done a lot of work micro-analyzing even screenshots that came out from Unreal just a couple weeks ago. Well, now the series debuts in about 10 days, the 29th, I think, July 29th, which is a Tuesday on Netflix. But this is something that we've been talking about for a very long time, ever since we found out it was in production. And today we've had a teaser. We had Triple H, remember, he drove up to WWE HQ talking about it in the teaser and what it was. Well, now, obviously the first batch of episodes has been, I would imagine, completed if it's coming out on the 29th. And we have a full-on trailer. And I've got to tell you, I watched the trailer and I'm jazzed up, dude. I know a lot of people going into this were concerned. A lot of people going into this are concerned about the level of exposure certain things are going to get. The idea of exposing what's going on in storylines. I think the idea that we're going to discuss John Cena's heel turn is almost looked at as sacrilege by some wrestling fans who are going, well, that, you can't pull back the curtain. I think the curtain for us has been pulled back. As I'm looking at the story behind what's in this trailer, and I'd recommend you watching it if you haven't, when you look at it, what you're getting, especially from some of the Triple H dialogue, is like in the beginning, him talking about, isn't this just a bunch of guys pretending to fight with each other? Well, it's a lot more than that. And then like talking about creating stories, Michael Hayes popping up and saying we're trying to generate interest from fans. I think what you've got here is this, look, the wrestling business, WWE is, for me, one of the reason I'm obsessed with this is because it is such a fascinating, deeply fascinating thing. In 1992, my parents gave me tickets to SummerSlam. I was living in England. I was 8 years old, something like that. We were living in England, and 3 days before SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium, my dad came home with tickets, and I flipped out. I mean, I don't think in my life I've ever experienced that jolt of excitement. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know it was going to happen. I was 7, 8 years old. I remember to this day going, what are these? And him saying, what do they look like? And I screamed and I leapt and I couldn't believe that I was going to get to see this thing in person. And my parents told me later that they had a conversation together. They said that they knew that as a child, I was so obsessed with pro wrestling. And they worried that if they brought me to a show and we had decent seats, which we did, we were in like the 12th, 15th row, something like that. They were worried that if they brought me to a show, that I would see it up close and personal. And I would see that the fists weren't making contact. And I would see that thighs were getting slapped. And I would see that this was a show, that this was not really good guys and bad guys fighting for their lives. And they said, we got to bring him to the show because, it's his biggest dream in the few years that he's had on this planet. But they said this could be the end of him loving this thing because he's going to figure it out. And I went, and to tell you that the love that I had for professional wrestling already went through the roof would be an understatement. Seeing it up close and personal, seeing all the colors, seeing the human beings realizing that this was all a show going on in real time with everything happening, just putting the pieces together of seeing that they somehow organized the Legion of Doom to come out with gold shoulder pads on motorcycles while Paul Ellering carried this insanely strange ventriloquist dummy. The Undertaker coming out in a hearse, to see the most cartoonish stuff like Nails and Virgil fighting, and then to spend the evening till we get to the point where you see this amazing athletic showcase of Bret the Hitman Hart and the British Bulldog. Not only was I not turned off by the idea of finding out what it really was, it never occurred to me. Not to say they tricked me. Real or fake never occurred to me. It was just wrestling. And seeing it happen, like, I will never forget that experience of getting close to it. And getting close to it made me love it so much more. And when I see, and then the closer that I got, the more that I loved it. And when I started getting to go to WWE shows regularly, I loved it more. And when I got the internet and started reading newsletters, I loved it more. And when I ended up getting hired by WWE, which is still mind-blowing to this day, and going backstage and making relationships with wrestlers and with people behind the scenes, and not only seeing but being a very, 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 very small part of how the sausage is made, I loved it even more, because the further you get, the more you see how much is really going in to everything that we see, and how, like, magic the whole thing actually is in real life. And I'm an optimist when it comes to this stuff. I understand that, and some people don't like that, and some people like it. It is what it is. But for me, I look at a trailer like WWE Unreal, and it seems like they're taking this opportunity to show all that, to allow everybody to get that close to the business and go, I can't believe this is what's really going on. I can't believe how much is going into this. And to see, like, Rhea Ripley go, this is the biggest show of the year, and I'm losing my mind, and I'm so nervous, but then I walk through the curtain, and I become Rhea Ripley. And as a human being, you go, I get it. I get nervous like that before I have to speak publicly. I get nervous like that before I have to go talk to my boss. I get nervous like, and then to realize that these performers are human beings, not superheroes. They're regular people like us who happen to have excelled at this thing called professional wrestling. I mean, little things like seeing Bianca Belair describing that she needs her braid to be thick so that it makes a different sound when she hits Rhea Ripley or whoever it was, and you realize that they're going to that level of detail, that they want that sound to be made when that braid hits another body. And they're making sure that that sound is made because that sound will translate the story that they're trying to tell in the ring. You know, to see, like, CM Punk sitting there and explaining that this was a dream he's had since he was a little kid. CM Punk is the biggest superstar there is. And he's saying, like, yeah, this was just my dream from when I was a kid, and now I get to do it. And he's been doing it forever, and he still has that almost wonderment. But then you see those highs and you see the lows. You see that other scene where CM Punk looks to be injured, and he can't believe this is happening. He can't believe it. Maybe it's being taken away from him. You know, you see Triple H calling the camera angle for how they're shooting Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns so that you see the chair shot just perfectly, and you realize that there is a method to all this. You realize the reason that you have all these feelings about what you're seeing is because there is a deliberate intention to making sure that those feelings come out of you at the exact right moments. I mean, Triple H talking about, like, the alternative universes where they just sit there in a room going, what if this happens? What if that happens? And there was a world where this one does this to that guy, and we end up in a totally different spot. That maybe it's not what you think it is. That maybe it's like, we're going to do this, and because it's wrestling, we're going to see where it leads. But we never get to X at the end of the year if we didn't do Y 8 months before that. If we had done Z 8 months before that, then we'd be at A at the end of the year. And they don't even appear to be connected. But that's just the magic of wrestling. I think there are a lot of people that are out there that don't watch wrestling, that still to this day are like, well, whatever. It's a bunch of like idiots who wear tights and then they play dopey music and they come out and they act like circus clowns and then they pretend to fight each other and a bunch of rednecks cheer for it. There's a large population that is how they surmise professional wrestling. And it literally couldn't be less accurate. Like the mainstream forms of entertainment that are not as good as professional wrestling, the list goes on for days. And I think that when you see a show like this, that's to me what it does. Not only will it allow us to see kind of further into that looking glass that we haven't been able to look into before, but I think it shows the world what this thing is. It shows the world why this thing is so great, and I think it has the potential to show the world what it is that all of us are obsessed with and why, honestly, we're in the right to be obsessed with it. We're in the right to be here tuned into a pro wrestling radio station 24 hours a day. We're in the right to be taking in wrestling content all the time because it's unreal. How do you like that? I just thought of that just now. That was good.